So continuing to dive into Trump's conspiracy charges, MSNBC News report speaks on Trump's prison fears mount as new charges show all roads lead to coup. All right, let's check it out.
All of this together constituted a multi-month, multi-pronged conspiracy. Here's how we first reported that a year back, as 8 distinct plots to overturn the election. You can see them there. We documented how some started out legally. Upper left, November, lawsuits, fine. Even frivolous.
Just thinking back to what all took place during 2020. Timelines put things into perspective and just take you back, man. It's the year I lost my mom too, man. So 2020 is just a crazy year to think back to for me.
Lawsuits, even lawsuits with false information, are something that you can legally do in America. But then over time, we showed you how most of the plots then involved actions that were at a minimum unconstitutional. That means not allowed, don't work, whether or not anybody goes to prison. And then some were actually appeared to be indictable as a criminal conspiracy. So this is what we showed you. This runs back over a year. People say, do facts matter? Does reporting matter? Well, I don't have to prove to you this week. Yeah, sometimes it really does, because for the first time, we can now update this same report to show you that the DOJ's Jack Smith indicted defendant Donald Trump on conspiracies across five of those long-running plots that we first reported.
Wow.
That's one of the things we learned this week. The DOJ and the special counsel found facts supporting this conspiracy view of the case and determined that it is provable in court, while the defendant remains legally presumed innocent and will get his day in court. Now, they did not bring a sedition or insurrection case against Trump or his aides. There have been sedition cases against other individuals. The bad news for Donald Trump is that many plots means more than one charge. And some of the strongest smoking gun evidence is in that early starting electors plot that you see there. It's second on your screen, highlighted, started in November. There's smoking gun evidence in the fraudulent electors plot because they did the fraud in writing. It involved a ton of people, and Donald Trump's aides admitted it before, during, and after.
Today, an alternate slate of electors in the contested states is going to vote, and we're going to send those results up to Congress.
Something that Rudy and the team have worked on. The Trump slate of electors are showing up today in the state capitals.
We fought to see the electors. The Trump campaign asked us to do that.
There has been an alternate slate of electors voted upon that Congress will decide in January.
Yes, I was part of the process to make sure there were alternate electors. Everything that was done legally by the Trump legal team, according to the rules and under the leadership of Rudy Giuliani.
That last admission is from Trump aide Boris Epshteyn, pointing at Giuliani as the #1 leader of the elector plot. This week, Giuliani became the #1 co-conspirator in this indictment.
It's interesting to see the fingers that get pointed, man, when things start to crumble and go down and they looking for somebody to blame. Boy, that bus where people run you over with start cranking up. You hear it coming, man, and they finna start singing, fam. This is crazy.
It details how he and Trump allegedly used the certificates of these fraudulent electors to deceitfully target the government function. Now, here's how that worked. In the real legal world, the actual electors from every state met on December 14th, as they always do, and made it official, as the AP reported. Electoral College makes it official. Biden won, Trump lost. Now, on the conspiracy chart, that's, like you see, mid-December there. But over in fraudulent world, the indictment recounts how those fraudulent electors convened sham proceedings pretending to be the real Electoral College meeting. What you see here is what the indictment describes it as, why people are in so much trouble, and also one of those actual meetings on video. This is now what you see here, criminal evidence. Arizona Republicans met on the same day as the real Electoral College, but they held a sham fraudulent proceeding. DOJ has evidence that 6 other states pulled off this same fraud and told on themselves because they didn't just do it and hold meetings. They even posted their fraudulent certificates on the internet. So that fraud played out in the open. And let's be clear, unlike, say, a politician giving a speech or even lying in public, what I just showed you crosses well beyond speech, which we all are supposed to respect under law. And if you really want to get in the weeds, before I did this job, I practiced First Amendment law, care a great deal personally and professionally about the First Amendment. Speech and your free speech does not protect fraudulent conduct. You have the right to say you drive a Porsche. And if you don't, you have a free speech right to lie about it. You don't have a right to fraudulently make a certificate claiming a car is a Porsche and selling it to someone else. That's just plain old business fraud if you found someone gullible enough to fall for it. It's also striking to see where Jack Smith draws a line. Some fraudulent electors have been indicted in Michigan in a different local case, for example, but others have not. And we know now, what we didn't know last week, why at least Special Counsel Smith thinks justice sometimes means not charging some of those grassroots Trump fans. Because he concluded that some of them were just naive pawns, deceived by more powerful and informed Trump co-conspirators. Indictment noting that some of Trump's fraud...
How do y'all feel about that? Saying people were pawns. I know a lot of people sitting in jail feel like they were pawns. To be honest, if we're going to be honest, because I know some people want to be like, yeah, they were pawns. They didn't know what they were. There's a lot of people in jail saying that. A lot of people who were indicted saying that I didn't knowingly participate in this crime. And the judge looking at him saying, you should have known. You should be more aware. You have to be held accountable because you participated, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Still a crime. So how do y'all feel about that?
He concluded that some of them were just naive pawns.
Naive.
Deceived by more powerful and informed Trump co-conspirators. Indictment noting that some of Trump's fraudulent electors were tricked into participating in the scheme. Now, I point that out because it shows the DOJ's precision here. It also is bad for the co-conspirators and the leaders of the plot because it adds the evidence that they knew in advance they were committing crimes. They were so clear on that point, they were even hiding and lying the full plan from the very people they recruited into it. The electors' plot was fundamentally about lying as a pretext. The idea was not that the real Electoral College would somehow implode over random people pretending to be electors in various conference rooms. I showed you the AP headline. At the time that day, the news was about the actual Electoral College, not the randos. But the plot was that it would somehow help add confusion and another pretext for the other plots to ultimately hijack the January 6th certification. And that's why Trump tried to install his own political hack at the DOJ, who would issue fraudulent announcements claiming that there were election problems. It was another pretext. Remember, Trump's own Republican appointees who replaced Bill Barr, who were leading DOJ, they wouldn't go along with that. So he explored installing the now indicted DOJ vet, Jeffrey Clark, a plan that fell apart when Trump saw and was told that the ensuing mass resignations would set his coup plan backward, something first detailed in those January 6th committee hearings. So here you can actually see the three plots, getting the states or DOJ involved to push the elector fraud, right? So on the map you're looking at, number 3, states, DOJ interference there in the middle, and the elector fraud up top. All of those are interrelated. I'm showing you exactly how to think about a conspiracy, what the investigators found, and what a jury will ultimately decide, because all three of those are in the new charges. Smith citing the letter I just mentioned as illegally trying to abuse DOJ authority to falsely present the fraudulent electors. And as Trump hoped the DOJ would shake down Georgia's legislature, he personally hammered...
As a valid alternative. I was trying to read that before he went on to the next one. But sought to advance Trump's fraudulent elector plan by using the authority of the Justice Department to falsely present the fraudulent electors as a valid alternative to the legitimate electors. That is scary. Scary. You hear a lot of people, myself included at times, saying, and we don't trust the government, that we don't trust certain branches, certain parts of the government. We don't trust because we either feel like you're lying to us, You either feel like you're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. You're trying to, you know what I mean? And then you have things that happen to put you right back into that frame of mind of saying, man, I don't trust y'all. You know what I mean? And y'all know me, man. I'm always sitting back just looking and observing and saying, I don't know. The first thing you tell me, I'm not going to believe anyway. Too many conspiracies out there. Too many things we've seen happen. Too many situations. Ever since I was a young kid, my teacher taught us about the Electoral College and was basically saying it's ultimately up to them. That's what she taught us. It didn't matter what our vote did or said or whatever. It was up to the electorate. That's what I was taught at a young age. So, interesting.
And as Trump hoped the DOJ would shake down Georgia's legislature, he personally hammered the state's top elections official in that recorded call. It was a lot of plotting. Now, as you know, some of those plans just fizzled. The DOJ thing totally died. Georgia officials did not jump in and try to help Trump steal the race from their own constituents. So by late December, that elector plot might have seemed like a misfire which was fading away. It certainly wasn't getting a lot of public political or press attention at the time. But that plot, which is now one of the worst smoking gun evidence pieces of the indictment that could now land Trump in prison, it kept coming back. It was the zombie scene in this now indicted conspiracy story. So even when other people beat it back or warned Trump against such obvious fraud, the zombie electors kept coming back. It continued from those early origins, as I showed you on the upper left of this chart, all the way through the January 6th certification itself, literally. So that as Pence arrived to preside, we can see in the new indictment this week, Smith busts the zombie elector plot coming back to life. And he pins it on Trump and co-conspirators, saying they caused the fraudulent electors to transmit their false certificates now to the vice president. They really did that. They took it all the way from those weird conference room meetings and their little internet postings all the way to the floor of Congress on January 6th. This is part of the indictment. And that day, again, the investigators go back to the scene of the crime. Nobody knew other than those participants that as Pence, who you see on the right, walking in to preside on January 6th, just around 12:58 p.m., as he's walking in, within the same hour, Republican Senator Ron Johnson's aide pushing the fraudulent elector certificates, the zombies back to life. We're lining up the video here with their secret, now exposed texts. And a Pence aide didn't want the fraud near the boss, replying there, do not give that to him. They're talking about the zombie elector fraud. Now, what did Pence know that day? Way more than everybody else. He knew all about Trump's plots, how many there were. He knew that his own lawyers, longtime stalwart conservatives, had concluded those plots were illegal. And Pence didn't want to become a co-conspirator to it, indicted or not. Pence knew Trump had plans for a bloodless coup. That's what it would have been if they worked this all out through all that paperwork and fraud, with lawyers and these government hacks trying to take over. And within a few hours, Pence knew Trump fomented and embraced a bloody coup, as Trump fans literally attacked the government, staged an insurrection, a now convicted sedition, and publicly demanded and worked towards the assassination of then Vice President Mike Pence. You ever stop and take it all in and go, well, we lived through that?
Right. That's exactly what I was sitting here doing, going back in my mind. Like, y'all imagine what we've been through? That's why I always go back to saying what people outside of our country look at us and say. But think about what we've been through, what we've seen, what has happened, what has unfolded right before our very eyes between this election and everything that happened in 2020. We're all going to need therapy, y'all.
And as of last week, no one in government, nobody at the top had been even bothered about it, let alone indicted about it. That all just changed this week. So if you feel that, if sometimes you kind of stop and you take a breath or you get goosebumps or you say, well, maybe we're on the road to some accountability. And by accountability, I mean the justice system process. I do not mean prejudging the defendant. He will get his day in court. He's legally presumed innocent. But that we have a system now where an independent special counsel, who historically has prosecuted Democrats like John Edwards and Republicans and others, Jack Smith, has gathered this evidence together, and this is what he says accountability looks like. He will bring it to court. He will work across the plots. I just showed you a couple, not all of them. And he can only bring a case like this if he, a quite experienced and veteran prosecutor, says he has the goods, that he can prove beyond a reasonable doubt the criminality across the 5 plots we showed you. If it feels big, if it feels momentous, that's because it is. You have the world's richest person spending over $40 billion on something. You can bet his interest goes well beyond tweets or a personal hobby or even going viral. Twitter matters more for its impact on the world than any particular tech it has or even its revenue. And so that's where we begin tonight. You think about those old rules that try to limit how many newspapers one company can own or how much media one company can own in a town, and it reminds us the sense of sheer power of one person owning this platform that shapes media, perception, even potentially elections in many different countries around the world. And there were signs that Musk was doing this, taking this giant bet, spending all of this money and time and energy on Twitter. And he was doing it for his own self-interest and power. And as we've documented before, at the same time, he's a shrewd marketer. So he didn't say, hey, I'm doing this for me. He pitched his takeover to American audiences as a kind of public service for free speech, or even selective right-wing claims about free speech. And then he vowed to save and improve Twitter as a company. Okay, we've reported on this before. Tonight we have some really significant updates because it's about 8 months later. What's happened? Well, Twitter is now worth roughly half of what Musk paid for it. Traffic to the site, which is the bread and butter and lifeblood of any website.
Whoa. When did I miss that? Half? He's lost that much money? That's insane. Now, I know what kind of turned a few people off, but I didn't know what was going on. That's why I wanted to check out this news article, this news video about it. I heard him when he was saying they were going to start charging, right? And then they said how many tweets you're able to see per day or something like that is when I started saying, okay, things might be going downhill over there. I'm not really on Twitter like that. You know what I mean? I pop in and pop out. But just basically hearing that and hearing people's gripes about it, I knew something was going on. Then, which was a second, like, okay, what's going on here, was the rebrand going from the bird to the X. I was like, this is important. Something's going on here. Pay attention. You know what I mean? So that's when I started, okay, because I didn't even know he did that until I went to look for Twitter on my phone one day and was struggling to try to find it and didn't know they had changed it to the X.
Our app is tanking, and the accounts that do use the platform are posting less. Many of Musk's pledges have come up short. It's disappointing even the conservatives who had cheered the promise of Musk advancing free speech.
I think it's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech. It's just really important that people have both the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely.
For once, this isn't about power and money. Musk is doing it to save free speech.
It's not an overstatement to say it could be the single most important development for free speech in the modern history of the United States.
This is a guy who's made a lot of money. He's been very successful. Loves this country and the freedoms it affords.
The first thing he's going to do is establish free speech there.
Okay. There was a lot of talk like that, as you saw from Musk and his fans, and we're just going to look at the record because anyone is free to love America and free speech. And while Musk rushed to pick sides in American politics, he attacked Clinton, he buddied up to Ron DeSantis, he invited Trump back on Twitter, he fast-tracked a later collaboration with Tucker Carlson. That's all fine. Do what you want. But when you widen out beyond Musk's chosen political spats, what he wants you to focus on or be distracted by, and look at the full record of Twitter around the world, Under Elon Musk, the company caves to censorship requests by authoritarian governments. It censors, bans, or removes content critical of the ruling parties in Turkey and India, for example. Now, that is something the previous leaders of Twitter have also done, along with other social media companies. But let's go a little bit deeper. Twitter does it more under Musk. In the year before his takeover, Twitter agreed to about half of government.
That can't be true. Somebody, I got to double check that. I got to fact check this. Are you serious? This cannot be true. You mean the whole thing, the whole premise around this whole thing was him acquiring this for free speech and they censorship more? Nah, I can't just take this this poll right here and this information here. I got to see it somewhere else.
Censorship requests that it got, that number now up to 83%, significantly higher in Musk's first 6 months. Now, Elon Musk does not deny this. Instead, the self-proclaimed free speech protector says he's just doing what he's told by the dictators. Quote, "We can't go beyond the laws of a country."
Wow.
As the right-wing applause has faded, even some conservatives are now hitting him for, quote, "bowing down to dictatorship." That's a Fox News item right there. Musk has proven to be, at best, a fair-weather fan of free speech and a free press. He turned on the free speech of the journalists when he opposed some of what they said. He banned them from Twitter and later reinstated them. He also trolls and plays games, which is designed to sort of confuse people or distract from things I just showed you, like the data of the measurable rise in Twitter censorship around the world. So, for example, he dived into a term that some progressives have used and tried to treat it as a kind of what he argued was hate speech or a slur. The Washington Post noting the self-proclaimed free speech absolutist declared the term cisgender to be a slur and threatened to suspend people who use the term on Twitter. Now, again, you can have a debate about all sorts of stuff, but the free speech absolutist telling you that he's now picking what words you can say and will ban you for them is obviously, well, contradicting himself. Now, Musk engages on those matters. He personally oversaw the firing or ousting of a lot of staff from the prior Twitter administration.
But I saw a lot of people didn't think this was going to be possible in the beginning. So they're probably all saying, "I told y'all so. This wasn't going to be possible." They applauded him for his effort in trying to get this done, but they just didn't see it happening long term. You know what I mean? This was more so a short term fix for him to get what he supposedly wanted, which ain't looking like he getting it right now with the company and him losing that much money. But a lot of people were saying this. I wasn't one of them. I thought he was going to get it done, but whoa.
And then there are business failures. Now, that's a problem for any company, but especially for free market conservatives who have argued the market is the judge of a leader like Musk. Well, the business of Twitter is cratering. This is the other update I mentioned. Musk fired or faced resignations from the majority of Twitter's staff, including the trust and safety team.
I remember that.
Company veterans who argue he basically was taking deliberate steps to invite or require that exodus. There are policies that disbanded a safety council that tries to address online challenges like alleged hate speech, child pornography, statements of self-harm. And there's early data showing the site has now seen this spike in hateful, violent, and inaccurate posts. Derogatory language, including the use of the N-word, has skyrocketed, which again is a contrast to Musk's apparent eagerness to troll or threaten to ban other words, but not get that one under control. Now, I want to be clear with you tonight. Whatever you think of Mr. Musk, and you can see his, well, contradictions or hypocrisy, some of these are complex and debatable issues for any publisher or social media company. Meaning, I'm not going to try to resolve them all with you this moment, but I will tell you this. The markets don't like what Musk is doing. They don't like the reality or perception that Twitter is more lenient towards hate speech or those problems. There are advertisers who are ditching new Twitter under Musk. Indeed, about a 50% plunge in ad revenue, which Musk concedes, and the company,
plus heavy
like any
debt
company,
load,
can debate volatile and noisy valuations. But Musk says Twitter has lost over half its value since he bought it. So the business guru is not exactly delivering business results, which were much promised, and that undercuts some of the early right-wing buzz.
He's our Edison. This is our Thomas Edison. This is our Da Vinci of our generation.
He's draining the swamp of Twitter, and it needs to be drained. But the way that he's doing it, to me, is genius.
You know that he is a genius when it comes to Tesla and when it comes to SpaceX. When Elon comes in, he's going to have sophisticated data analysts.
It's just going to happen like that, right?
Now, let's not kick his back all the way in, right? It's still new under his regime. I'm just speaking of the right now. You know what I mean? I ain't trying to kick his back in because he is a very good businessman and he does still have an opportunity to turn this around. You know what I mean? This could be just the storm that he's in right now, but the calm. Normally you say it's the calm before the storm, but right now he's dealing with the storm, so maybe the calm is next. We'll see what happens. I don't like to really go in on somebody like that without giving them time to fix it. You know what I mean? It normally takes several years and people look for you to make a situation just happen overnight. It's not possible. Remember, like he said, he came in and he let go a pretty good bit of the staff. So you got to get new people in. Then you got to get new ideas and lead generation of how to get ad revenue and different things that you can do. You know what I mean? And people who didn't agree with you when you took over were going to leave. So that could have been where some of the ad sponsorship went. You know what I mean? They probably didn't. This is what they won't tell you. They probably didn't agree with Musk in the first place. So that could be part of what's leaving. So we just don't know. So like I said, I'm not going to completely, you know what I mean? But I do see, I'm not blind. I do see that he is losing. He is going back on some of the things he talked about he was doing this for. So I'm all aware of that, but I just want to see how this plays out, though.
Unless it's not. So why are so many people getting this so wrong? I mean, I just want to level with you. Part of what we're seeing on the right is a kind of partisan hero worship applied to a business leader, which itself is kind of odd, but we all know how partisanship can work. Partisan fans get very biased towards their party or team, and that can put you in kind of a box. Those kind of blinders now being applied to shield Musk, a very rich, powerful man, from objective judgment from some of those quarters, even as independent experts see his leadership besieged by these missteps. And there's measurable failure. I mentioned traffic is tanking. The top voices who power a site like this.
That's another thing we didn't talk about. Meta and Threads. That whole Threads situation, we didn't talk about. That's one thing that also came that kind of hit him with an uppercut real quick to kind of knock him back as well. So it's a ton of different things. And that may be where the rebrand is coming from with the X. So he could be on top of it. But I forgot about that Threads. You know what I mean?
Just using it less, posting less. And other users say they're just taking a break altogether from Twitter. Now, some of Musk's changes just didn't work. For example, he had the idea of charging for verification, basically taking something that was an authority system where you say, oh, that's really the person that says it is, or that's really the New York Times account, and putting it up for sale. Now, again, as with other things I've said tonight, whether you personally like that or care about that is one thing. But as a business, the market test has Musk failing. The market and users largely rejected that system. Many say it stoked confusion. And that's not just happening in a vacuum. The turmoil created an opening for a Twitter alternative. There are some startups out there like Blue Sky. Then there's the big incumbents like Mark Zuckerberg's company, which has now recently unveiled its alternative, Threads, which is a threat to Twitter. But now these two billionaires are getting in their bro bags, openly taunting each other about a physical fight. I can tell you that is really unfortunate. Some tech reporters are charting this as a kind of Musk tantrum or meltdown over all of the Meta competition. And
I see stuff like that. For all I know, they're behind the scenes laughing at us, thinking they're going back and forth with each other when they could be using this as some type of marketing scheme.
Most basic level, Musk looks weak, losing a popularity contest to Mark Zuckerberg and his 100 million new Twitter users on a non-Twitter. At a business level, let's be clear, Zuckerberg's company is not exactly innovating here. It is stepping into a void that Elon Musk created with all of those actions that had users and advertisers bailing. Threads' early success has nothing to do with Threads, argues NYU business professor Scott Galloway, citing instead the dysfunction at Twitter and noting Musk's behavior lowered the drawbridge and Zuckerberg walked through it. So that's the Elon Musk part. Now, he was also an effective entrepreneur and marketer with his other companies. Pointing out that Elon Musk's claims about Twitter and political free speech were off base doesn't mean he has no business acumen whatsoever. It just means his recent attempts to combine a right-wing partisan agenda with running this particular company is failing. There are also some wider trends. So to be accurate or fair, there's the point that Twitter is still built on the old arcane follow-based social network where users manually seek out accounts they want to follow, like Facebook. Tech writer Taylor Lawrence explains this. The most popular apps these days are not those kind. The new ones, like TikTok, deliver content through a sophisticated feed. Now, under that analysis, again, whether you use these social media devices or not, these apps or not, this is a big part of our world and our politics. The analysis there is that Facebook and Twitter are more like a library where you kind of have to walk your way through the aisles and work to pick out books. And TikTok is more like a modern TV that serves up all the shows, news, or fun you could want without any work, decisions, or thought. It just keeps coming at you. Now, the reach and control of these platforms matter for society and democracy. That's why they're on the news tonight, not because we're obsessed with Twitter on the beat. They matter to the new generation, to the young people, if you will, just like radio mattered to FDR or TV mattered to JFK. And when Kennedy mastered television, watch out, because there wasn't a politician that could really beat him in a televised debate. That may be why so many Republicans thought a Musk Twitter would not only help them go viral or dunk on their enemies or post trolling content, but it might help them win elections in an environment where you might have noticed Republicans have struggled to win national elections. So they gave Mr. Musk a lot of latitude over these last 8 months. And what's he done with it? I showed you tonight. He's squandered it, a lot of it, on a path that has hurt his own credibility, his politics, and yes, his own finances.